Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to Motive JT. It is a gorgeous, although very hot and humid day here in the morning in South Texas. But today I wanted to talk about the Jeep Gladiator and its reliability. You know, I'm going to pose something here, and I'm very curious to hear if you guys agree with me or not. I'm going to say that the Jeep Gladiator isn't unreliable. It's just quirky. Now, what do I mean by that? You know, Jeeps in general have a bad reputation, right? They're not known to be the most reliable vehicles out there in the world, and duly so, I think. I've had some, what I'm going to term as quirky things with my Jeep Gladiator, so I'm going to run through that real quick. Now, first of all, I should define reliability. Reliability to me means every time I go outside and push that start button, it runs and it gets me where I'm going and back home without getting stranded anywhere. To me, that's reliability. Everything else is just a quirky, annoying little thing. Do you agree with me there? Leave a comment. First of all, some weird, quirky things that I've had. And I've had the first one in every Mopar vehicle I've ever owned, Jeeps or Rams or whatever. And that is the radio black screen. It never fails that every new vehicle I get that's a Mopar product has that black screen problem. In other words, you get it, everything's great, radio looks great, big, nice, bright screen, clarity is good. And then one day, you start it up and the screen goes black. It doesn't work. And immediately you start to panic, especially if it's on a new vehicle, because you don't want to screw around, have to take it back into the dealership, maybe get a new radio, wait for that to happen, spend hours and hours. You don't want to do any of that, right? It's happened to me every time I've had a Mopar vehicle. It always comes back. It's like some sort of an update or a reset that occurs after you get the vehicle. And I think Jeep ought to state that. They ought to tell you that when you're getting this new Jeep, that the radio at some point is going to go black. Don't worry about it. It's just a reset or update process. It's not going to be a problem. It happened to me in a Ram Rebel that I had, and not only did I lose the radio, I lost the whole gauge cluster because all of that was digital as well. That was a little concerning because I couldn't see my fuel gauge. I couldn't see how fast I was going. I couldn't see anything. It all came back up after I turned the truck off, let it sit for a couple minutes, and then I never experienced it again. Jeep ought to tell you this. Next up, the vibration. You know, it's a pet peeve of mine anyway. Vibrating vehicles drive me nuts. I don't want to feel them sitting there going as I'm stopped or maybe at the drive-through or whatever. My Jeep Gladiator does that, and I really believe it's because the jets that squirt the gas in are too narrow and they clog easily. I've heard this to be the case. I can't confirm it, but I know that every time it happens, I dump some fuel cleaner in there, you know, fuel injector cleaner, and the problem goes away for about 3 or 4 months, something like that, and then I do the thing all over again. Now, some people have questioned me on this and that I don't drive it enough. That's probably a fair statement. I have 3 vehicles, so I don't drive the Jeep Gladiator solely all the time, although right now it is my daily. I mean, when I need to go somewhere, particularly if I'm going to park somewhere, that's the vehicle that I take. But nonetheless, it doesn't get a lot of miles put on it, and it certainly doesn't get a lot of freeway driving. So I'm not driving it harder and forcing gasoline through there to keep those tiny injectors clean. I don't know if that's the case, but it's one of those quirky little things that really gets on my nerves. Steering. I've had a lot of comments recently about steering, about the Gladiator wandering, or even having to keep the steering wheel turn further one way or the other to keep it in a straight line. Seems to be a big problem out there because I'm getting a lot of comments about it. I haven't experienced that in mine, although I will say the orientation of the wheel seems to be a little bit to the left. In other words, when I'm driving in a straight line, it's like the wheels kind of turn just a little bit. Doesn't wander. I don't have to keep adjusting it or anything crazy like that, but it's not dead on straight. And I think that's really most likely due to alignment. They can correct that. I've had guys do it for me before. They get underneath when they're doing a tire or wheel alignment. There's a bolt under there that they can turn so that they can align that steering wheel. That's something that I'm going to have done the next time I have to have the truck aligned. Again, don't let anybody tell you that can't be done. I've had it done. I know that it can. A lot of people complain about it. It does seem to be a valid quirk of the Jeep Gladiator. The auxiliary battery. That, to me, is just absurd. I can't stand the stop-start system anyway, or the auto stop, whatever you want to call it. The auxiliary battery is a part of that system, and it seems to fail regularly, if not within the first 2 or 3 years. We just replaced a battery in my buddy Randall's Jeep. There's a video on the channel, by the way, if you want to check that out. Just search Rob Motive JT battery. And it failed. I think it was within 3 years or something like that in his. He lost the ability to use his auxiliary switches for a while, and I believe was getting a message that there was an auxiliary battery problem. We replaced it, and as far as I know at this point, everything has been good, no further issues. Now, the biggest problem with this system, in my opinion, since we know we have to replace the battery, is where they put the battery. It's kind of up underneath the fuse block, and you have to either take the top of the fuse block off, which we did not do, or a case that it sits in from underneath, beyond the inner fender liner, so you kind of have to pull that away. It's just not very fun to do. Not that you can't do it, but I think they should have put that battery somewhere in the compartment up on top where you could easily access it so that when you need to change it, and certainly they know it needs to be changed. And I'm curious, and you guys will have to let me know that have the new Gladiators, did they move the location of that battery or make it easier to go ahead and change it out? That's something I'd be very curious to know. Lastly, fuel economy. Now, this one, I know it's a Jeep, I know it's a truck, but we live in 2023, right? You think you'd get a little bit better fuel economy. Now, in all fairness, most of my driving is done around the city. So I'm not getting out there on the freeway to kind of pump those numbers up. I'm getting somewhere below 15 miles per gallon, 14.8, 14.7. It's horrible. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I'm even getting a little bit better fuel economy in my Tacoma, which also has a V6 engine. It's an automatic transmission. It ought to be fairly comparable, but the Gladiator is much lower. And I do know there are some folks out there who are getting better fuel economy in theirs. I think they do more long distance trips as well as maybe daily freeway driving back and forth to work and stuff. So that's probably why, but I'm not experiencing that. Horrible fuel economy. So anyway, you know, I really don't think the Jeep Gladiator is unreliable. It's never left me stranded anywhere, and it always starts when I want it to. But I do think it's quirky, and I think some of these quirks are what a lot of people complain about and what keeps some folks from actually pulling the trigger and buying the Jeep Gladiator. These are things that I think, maybe except for fuel economy, that are within the power of Jeep, Mopar, Stellantis, whoever owns them now, to take care of. If they just corrected these, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things, the Jeep would be right up there with maybe the Toyota Tacoma when it comes to quality and reliability. Anyway, leave a comment. Let me know. If you've got a Jeep Gladiator, do you have these issues? Do you think they're just quirks, or are they reliability problems? Also, are you afraid of the Jeep Gladiator? If maybe you're in the market, you're doing some research, watching videos like this, and it's the bad reputation of Jeep that have kept you away. I'd be curious to know. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.